Little League season is just about here. Leagues have started or will be starting all around the country soon. I got thrown into coaching Little League a couple years ago and had no idea what I was doing, but I've been very fortunate and blessed to work with some great coaches who have many more years of experience with me. And so I wanted to just collect a little bit of wisdom that I have learned from them over the years as I watch and continue to grow as an assistant coach myself. Hi, everybody. My name is Craig, and I have been coaching Little League in some assistant coach capacity over the last 4 years. So I wanted to give 5 different things that I've learned from various coaches that I've worked with that absolutely help make your Little League season better, and specifically 5 things that you can do every week in honor of Elon Musk asking what people are doing every week in the government. Well, here's 5 things that you can do every week to help improve your Little League season. First of all, plan all of your practices with purpose. I've seen very disorganized practices, and I've also seen practices where everybody knows and understands what you're going to do. And especially at the beginning of the season, it can be a little bit difficult because you're just getting to know each other. Maybe not all the equipment has arrived yet. You're struggling with a variety of different things. However, in general, the more you can lay out a clear focus for your practice, the better the practice is going to be. Are you going to have the kids start doing the same drill at the beginning of practice every single time? Are you going to always have them hit the batting cage or hit the tees or stretch or warm up their arms? The more that you can organize it so that way there is less wasted time of wondering who's going to go where and who's going to do what next. I think the biggest frustration that I see from the kids in Little League is when they're there and they're ready to practice, but the coaches are still a little disheveled and trying to figure out what's going on. So plan your practices with purpose, because that time, especially at the beginning of the season, is so valuable, because once you get into games, you just end up missing out on practice. Our team hasn't had a practice in a couple weeks due to games being played and weather knocking us out from our practice time. And there's just nothing you can do about it. But thankfully, we had some really good practice the first month of the season. So even though we're behind where we want to be, we're not super far behind. Second thing is this: become good at communicating with parents, players, and even the rest of your coaches. I can tell you that this is definitely one of the strengths of the team that I'm working with this year. I always feel like I am in the loop. There are always different questions, and obviously there are certain decisions that I don't need to be a part of the decision, but it's good to know when things change and quickly, and that it's not being caught off guard, that as soon as it was announced the other day that our practice was canceled, as soon as it was announced that the fields were canceled, both the coaches and the team, the rest of the players, all the parents were notified, hey, sorry about it, there's no practice tonight. Having those open lines of communication make things more fun. I believe it actually helps the kids bond with each other too. If the parents know what is going on, you're much less likely to have confusion about missed practices or when it's a practice, when it's a game. I certainly recommend using the Game Changer app for some of your communication, as well as texting as another option if you don't have access to that. But keep in good contact and communication with parents and players. Third thing is this: focus on individual growth with your players. Okay, in other words, yes, you want to win as a team, but ultimately, I think one of the biggest goals of a Little League coach is to encourage and find a way to help as many of those kids come back and play again the next year as possible. Every single year, it gets a little bit tougher. It gets a little bit harder to get people excited, and as more and more things come up, there's more and more conflicts, more and more choices that kids have. I think it's super important to keep them locked into the Little League world and the baseball world as long as possible, because someday you're going to be old like me and wish you could go play ball again. So I'm a big fan of helping kids want to stay there. And one of the ways they're going to stay there is if they're constantly improving. So while you're trying to teach things to the whole team, also make sure you're focusing in on particular areas that kids need to be working on. And by doing that and giving them some goals and giving them some rewards, it's going to be something that's going to work so much more. And I'm going to just caution you in the most general way possible. Praise individuals publicly and correct individuals privately. Now, sometimes there's a team thing that needs to be corrected publicly, and that's fine. But I'm saying don't pick on a kid in front of the entire team. Pull them aside and say, hey, this is something I've noticed. I'd like you to work on this. What can we do? How can we help you get this area fixed? So when it comes to individual things, praise publicly, praise them in front of their teammates and their friends, and then at the same time, correct them privately, make sure that you're not embarrassing them. You're just giving them the tools that they need to keep pushing forward. All right, number 4 is this: review and adjust your game strategy. I know we want to kind of be able to go in autopilot mode, but the truth is every game has a different set of different possibilities that are by it. So some general things that you can be doing, obviously, if you're going to play the same team multiple times in a year, keep some sort of mini scouting report. Now, you don't have to have pages and pages, but maybe have at least some numbers of some of the best pitchers on the other team. I would also encourage you to start keeping track of the umpires, because it's a whole lot easier if you can go into a game saying, hey, we know this umpire likes to call the high strike, or we know this umpire is really picky with not leaving base too early, or whatever it may be. Now, you can say, well, we should have better umpires or perfect umpires, and maybe, but that's a separate discussion. The fact is, you're probably going to be stuck with the umpires that end up being assigned to your games. And so if you have mini scouting reports on them, that would be helpful. Also, think about just some basic splits. So if your batters do hit better against lefties than righties, just some basic things. You don't need to go crazy over the top, but be watching. Maybe there's a kid who you've been batting in the 6 or 7 hole whose batting average or on base percentage is way higher than you realize. And so by keeping track of those stats, you realize, hey, maybe there's a spot for them higher in the lineup. 5th, and most importantly, I think, especially at the younger ages, is make sure baseball is fun. Now, I'm not saying to sacrifice winning, but if every single time the kids leave practice and every single time they lose a game, the kids are all walking off the field with their heads held low, there is a time for life lessons, but not every single practice and every single loss needs to be a life lesson. Sometimes kids just need to have a little pressure taken off of them. Let them go out there, play for fun, see what happens, and then take the time after everybody's kind of emotionally recovered and say, okay, now we know some things we need to work on, and go from that. Before we get to a bonus tip that I have for you, I just want to let you know I did put together a guide. If you were like me, getting thrown into Little League as a coach with having really zero experience and not knowing what to do, I put together a bunch of the things that I have learned over the last 4 years in being involved as a Little League coach into a PDF. It's available for purchase. The comments and the link is in the description below. I'd love for you to go check it out. It's 5 pages of a whole bunch of stuff. Some of the stuff that's here, but so much more we can't get to in this video. And I really want you to make sure that you can maximize your efficiency as a coach, that time is a blessing and not a burden to you, especially if you kind of felt like you were forced into it because there was a lack of coaches, or you're doing it because you want to be there with your kid, but it's just not something that's your skill set. I put that together for you. Feel free to even buy it if you're a coach and share it with your coaching staff. For real, I'm doing this because I want to help see youth baseball continue to grow and thrive from here. All right, so the last thing is this, my bonus tip: don't forget that you need to be learning every single week. And that ties in, of course, with my guide. It ties within you watching this video. But there's always certain things you could be learning. Don't always just necessarily stick with the same 10 drills that you've always used or the same games that you always play. Get out there, talk to other kids, talk to other coaches. And there's lots of good resources on YouTube as well when it comes to the tactical side. I'm kind of talking the broader overall strategy side of coaching. But when it comes to the tactical side, there's so many good videos that'll help teach with how to correct swings, how to properly field, all these different things. And I encourage you to go out there, watch some videos, inquire, learn some new knowledge of some of these things. And maybe you'll find a tip or trick that maybe you remember, but you forgot about, or you've just never heard before, and you can start putting it into practice to see results. One of the things that I did when I first started with T-ball is I got so frustrated seeing T-ball games where it was just all the kids running all over the place. And so I looked up on YouTube and I found a really simple drill, which was just put cones on the field to form zones for each of the kids and just teach them, okay, this is the zone that you're going to play as a first baseman. This is the zone you're going to play as second, short, third, left, center, right? And are you going to expect perfect play out of, kids playing T-ball? Of course not. But I did want them to have some basic ideas of how to play the game. So it's not just 7 or 8 kids running after the ball. That doesn't really turn out to anything fun, except for maybe fun watching from the stands. But it doesn't really teach them anything either. Instead, you can teach them the basics of, hey, this is your zone. You're going to protect your zone the best way that you can. And I think it really worked out. And it's really fun now, years later, seeing some of those kids from that T-ball team still continuing to play Little League today. And I really would just to challenge you, what is something that you can learn to make yourself better as a coach this Little League season?